Welcome to the Revival Method podcast, where we teach you actionable steps that you can take to start moving, thinking, and feeling better. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Revival Method podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brandon Parker, and this week has been absolutely hectic, but also unbelievably rewarding. You see, this is the time of the month where I'm getting on the phone with the majority of my clients and just seeing where everyone is. Like, is there any roadblocks that they're currently facing? If they are having some type of issue with not understanding something and we need to create awareness, that is the time to just sit down, unpack everything, and create the clarity that they're looking for. Because as I said in previous podcasts, the main reason why people don't actually get to their goal isn't because their plan is terrible or the way they're going about it is terrible. It's more so because there is a lack of clarity. People feel like they're not making the progress that they should be making. And then they just say, what's the point, right? So these calls have been monumental for my clients and their success. And I've been seeing a trend that I just am super excited to share, where a majority of them are saying things along the lines of, this is the most mobile I've been in a very long time. This is the first time in a long time that I'm actually wearing those clothes that have been sitting in my closet for the last couple years. I finally feel comfortable inside the gym and outside in my, going to social events. And I don't feel like I'm self-conscious. And that is like something that really fills my cup. It's something that I really feel passionate about. Like, if you're watching the video version of this, you can see the hair jumping off my skin right now. So just wanted to share that. And the reason why I wanted to share that is because everything that I'm sharing with you on this podcast is the very same things that I share with my clients. The big difference between what you're hearing now and what you would hear if I was on a one-on-one call with you is all of this information gets tailored towards you, and you have the accountability of me and your personal coach, making sure that everything is efficient. Everything is tailored to your preferences, your lifestyle. And if something comes up, we're able to game or workshop it together, So please, if you feel stuck, listen to these podcasts, ask me questions. I have no problem helping you. Today's episode's all about the frequently asked questions that I get about protein. If you've been listening to me long enough, you know that protein is something that's heavily underutilized for maximizing our health. And it's actually one of the reasons why, as we age, a lot of issues begin to arise. But before we get into these frequently asked questions, I do have a quick ask of you. If you've been listening to this podcast, if you've been getting any value from it, please, please, please take the 5 seconds that it would take to give me a 5-star review and follow the podcast by subscribing. If you're on Spotify, how you would do that is you hit the 3 dots at the top of the page. It will say rate the show. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you scroll to the bottom, you'll see the 5-star outline. You hit the 5 stars and you leave a comment. That tells me that this is reaching the right people. That also tells the algorithm that this show is worth it for other people. So please, please, please help me make that meta impact that I have dreamed to have made all this time. So without further ado, let's jump into the podcast. Let's talk about what everybody's been asking, which is protein, right? So the first thing is like, if you don't know what protein is good for, let's do a quick recap, okay? Protein is an essential macronutrient that your body needs to survive. Just like how we have essential fatty acids, we have essential amino acids. We need protein to restore our body. We need protein to make hormones, and we need protein to preserve and build muscle mass. You see, as we age, our muscle mass begins to, I would say, waste away or dwindle, because our hormones that help preserve muscle start to come down. And then we also, once again, are not eating enough protein to begin with. So as muscle comes down, our calories that we can eat on a daily basis has to come down as well, because if not, we'll start storing a tremendous amount of body fat, which is going to be harder to move throughout the day because you're just carrying more weight. But also, excess body fat can be inflammatory. So it's almost like putting salt on open wounds, right? It just doesn't feel good, right? So protein's super essential. And a lot of people just don't know how much they should be eating. The current recommendation for how much protein you should be eating, according to the standard guidelines, is 0.36 grams per body pound, which we can just say 0.4, which when you reference the research and you talk to all the experts that are in this field when it comes to the benefits of having muscle, like the experts in that field, they're suggesting something that's double. So somewhere between 0.7 all the way up to 1.2 grams per body pound. So as you can see, the 0.4 that's currently recommended, sure, that's enough for you to maybe make the hormones and survive, but it's not enough to be optimal. And if you really truly want to be optimal, we want to start bumping that number up closer to 0.7 grams per body pound at a minimum. Now, the question might be like, all right, so some people are doing 1.2 grams per body pound. Some people are doing 0.7 grams per body pound. Where do I land on that? Why would I pick one versus the other? Well, it depends on what your goal is. If you're somebody that's trying to lose weight, we want to be on the higher side of protein intake, because when we are eating less than what we're currently burning, the body doesn't necessarily pick and choose. It just kind of starts muscle wasting. It starts using fat. It's just trying to get energy for wherever it can get, right? So in a diet, as we're losing weight, some of that's going to be muscle unless we're doing two things. We're utilizing that muscle against resistance training, basically telling the body, hey, we need this, don't get rid of it. And then also two, eating enough of protein, which are the building blocks to repair that muscle and preserve it. So if you are dieting, you want to be on the higher side of that scale, somewhere around 1 gram per body pound, a little bit higher if you are a little bit more of an advanced lifter, okay? But let's say you're just trying to maintain your body weight, or for the select few that are trying to strategically gain weight, you can be more on the 0.7 grams per body pound, because your body isn't trying to find energy wherever it can. It already has a surplus of calories that it can pick and choose from, okay? So that's how you would decide how much protein you should be eating. If you're nowhere near 0.7 grams, that's okay. A majority of you will not be close to 0.7 grams. What you would do is just make sure you have at least one protein source in each of the meals that you eat throughout the day. If you're having a snack, find a protein source. This is an easy way that's not overwhelming that will allow you to up your protein over time without you feeling like you're stuffing your face. As time goes on, what typically happens is your hunger will come up, your activity will come up, and believe it or not, you're not going to be gaining weight, generally speaking. As we start to add more calories into your diet that's in the form of protein, what typically happens is you feel more energetic, you start to move more, you start to do things that require more energy, like how I'm talking with my hands right now, and that tends to balance out. That additional energy that you're eating gets burnt by the excess movements that you're doing because you feel good. Okay. I guess before I go to the next question, I should also say it's not unheard of that when you're eating protein and you're walking more and you're exercising more, you're going to be putting on more muscle. That's to be expected, right? You're using the muscle, you're repairing the muscle with the protein. So yeah, it makes sense you're going to be building more muscle. So I do not want you to be super let down when you hop on this scale and you don't see the number drop tremendously. There is a circumstance called body recomposition, especially for my beginner lifters here. Somebody that hasn't lifted in a very long time, or somebody that's lifting for the first time. You'll see this phenomenon where muscle is being built and fat's being burnt at the same rate. If not, sometimes you build muscle faster and you actually see the scale go up. And that might make people feel super uncomfortable. But please understand that the weight on the scale literally means nothing. We know that we want to move and feel and look good, and it doesn't come with a number. It comes with how you look in the mirror, right? How people perceive you, how you feel confident. So, as we go down these questions, understand that we need to detach ourselves from the number on the scale and understand that yes, we might put on a little bit more muscle. Yes, we're going to be probably a little bit heavier than what we initially embarked on this journey and what we were looking for. But the real goal is to look a certain way, feel a certain way, move a certain way, right? So just an important note that I just wanted to throw in there. Okay. So that's how much protein you should be eating. And the next question that's usually asked is like, "Oh, that's a lot of protein. I heard that protein's bad for your kidneys." It is not bad for your kidneys. It's been proven time and time again that as long as you don't have a predisposition to kidney issues or a pre-diagnosis to how your kidneys are functioning, if there's an issue with it, then you definitely need to consult your practitioner for a specialized diet. But if you have normal kidneys, no deficits within those kidneys, you can eat within this protein range with absolutely no problem at all. Okay. Most of you, like I said, are going to be trying to reach this protein goal and you're going to feel full. So it's going to be really hard for you to hit those numbers real quickly, anyways. So you can just slowly build over time and see how your body's adapting. So the third question that I get very often is, what are the most common protein sources? Where do I find protein? So most meats are going to be a protein source. That is a great source because animal protein is a complete protein. So when you have protein coming from plants and other sources, you get incomplete proteins. So you have to kind of make sure that you are eating a well-balanced diet to ensure you are getting a full profile of protein so you can get the biggest bang for your buck. So to answer the question directly, proteins for meats, you got your chicken, you got your fish, you got your bison, you have chicken, fish, pork, beef. These are all meat sources that are going to be great sources of protein. Now, going over to the vegetarian side, I should say, but of course, like anybody can eat this. You have your beans, you have your lentils, you have your chickpeas, you have tempeh, you have tofu. So these are a wide range of sources that you could be looking into. If you are looking into protein powders, whey protein is great for people that are not vegetarian or vegan. If you are in that range, if you are vegetarian or vegan, what you could be doing is looking into a protein powder that is it simulates whey. I'll look at some brands and I'll put it in the show notes because you want a certain blend of vegetarian protein, whether it come from, let's say, soy or rice or any of those sources that have a complete protein file. So that's something to consider. Without getting too specific here, I've been dancing around this. That's why I might sound a little vague because I don't want to overcomplicate it. But when we are eating protein, we want to find a source that has a lot of leucine in it. So you can look that up if you are in the vegetarian side. If you're eating meat, you don't have to really worry about this. But you want enough leucine in each one of your meals. It's an amino acid. This amino acid is the amino acid that will spike or start protein synthesis. Okay. So that's what I would like for you to look into if you are somebody that's not eating meat. I hope that all makes sense when it comes to where can I find protein. The next thing is how do I measure protein? Like, how do I know I'm getting enough? I don't really know. Well, you would either weigh your food, which I highly recommend, just so you can build that understanding and that awareness. So you, like, when you eventually don't have to weigh anymore, you can stare at a piece of meat and be like, that's about 4 ounces. That's about 24 grams of protein. So 4 ounces, generally speaking, from all meats is about 24 grams. Okay. As for your beans, lentils, and all that, I can't really take that from the top of my head. But if you look at the serving size in the back, you'll be able to see how much protein is in each one of those foods. Okay. So that's how you would know if you're weighing. If you are somebody that doesn't want to weigh their food or just doesn't have a scale and they want to get started immediately, a, a rule of thumb, I guess, that people use is the palm of your hand. A meat source that is the palm of your hand is going to be around 4 ounces. That will ensure that you're eating about 24 grams of protein per meal, just in the meat source that you're talking about. Now, the question that I get often is, when should I have this protein? Should I have it in the morning? Should I have it at night? Should I do this? Should I do that? Understand that yes, there is some truth to the anabolic window. And if you want to exercise and have a protein source before and after that exercise window, that's great. You can maximize your muscle building potential. But realistically speaking, the most important thing that you need to focus on is just getting that protein in throughout the day. Let's not worry about when to have the protein. Let's just make sure we're getting the protein to begin with. The easiest approach, and I would say not only the easiest, but I would say nearly the most effective way of doing this, is to just know that you have to eat, let's say, 100 grams of protein. And you know you're going to be eating 3 meals and 1 snack. Okay, so 4 feedings. Let's go ahead and break up those 4 feedings into 25 grams apiece. So if you're just making sure that you're eating 25 grams per meal, including the snack, you will get your 100 grams of protein. Easy enough, right? That's why I like to keep it simple, because if you adopt that framework, it's literally just adding a little bit more per meal if you have a higher protein target goal, right? So just make sure that you're eating enough throughout the day. Find out how many meals that you would like to eat, generally speaking, and just split up the protein across those meals. Easy enough, right? Now, if you're somebody that doesn't like to eat breakfast, if you're somebody that only wants to do 2 meals per day, then of course you're going to have a heavier protein feeding to meet your mark. So it's completely up to your dietary preferences. Some people like to do the intermittent fasting, which I used to do back in the day, and I had to get my protein feedings in 2 separate feedings. So one when I broke my fast, and then a couple hours later I would eat again. It works for some people. It helps fight cravings. For me, it was because I was a busy grad student and I didn't have enough time throughout the day to eat, prep, and all that. So I just prefer to do it all in a couple of meals. So I hope I'm not throwing too much out there. I hope I'm not speaking too fast. It's something that I get super excited about, and I get a motor mouth. So I hope you're sticking with me. The other question I get is, is there a maximal amount of protein that you can absorb? So it used to be thought of that you can only absorb 25 grams of protein in a single sitting. Well, as research is coming out more and more, we're finding that 25-gram upper limit is not necessarily true. There's research that shows 40, others 70, and then there's more coming out that it's higher and higher. So I don't want you to feel like you have to have like 8 meals per day to make sure that you're only getting 25 grams per meal. If you are, once again, only doing 2 meals per day and you're aiming for 100 grams of protein, you're going to have to do 50-50, right? Don't feel like that it's going to be a waste because you heard this myth that there's an upper limit of 25 grams per day. Okay. So that is the 5-6-ish questions that I get on a regular basis. If you have any questions regarding protein, drop a comment below if it's on Spotify. And then if you're in my newsletter, if you are in my community, drop a question in there. I will answer it as thoroughly as I can. And of course, because you're asking me in one of these more private settings, I'll be able to give you more context because I'll know who you are and we'll be able to ask additional questions. So instead of me being as general as I am here, I can be a little bit more pointed. Yeah. So I hope this was beneficial. Like, once again, I appreciate you all listening to this podcast. If you haven't done so yet, please take the 5 seconds that it would take to give a 5-star review. I will talk to you all in a week. Peace.